In the beginning there was one God, one creator, one divine force that shaped the cosmos and breathed life into humanity. Early humans, with their gaze drawn to the heavens, acknowledged this singular power. They worshipped with a simplicity that mirrored the natural world around them. Each sunrise, each rainfall, each rustling leaf was a testament to this unseen force. Their lives, interwoven with the rhythms of nature, found meaning in the worship of this single deity. This early form of monotheism, pure in its essence, reflected humanity's nascent understanding of the universe. It was a time of innocence, of direct communion with the divine. There were no idols, no temples, no intermediaries, just the vast expanse of creation and the awe-inspiring presence of the one God. This primal connection, however, was not destined to last. As humanity evolved, so too did its spiritual understanding, paving the way for a new era of belief. The story of Cain, the firstborn human to shed the blood of his kin, casts a long shadow over religious history. Banished for his sin, Cain and his descendants ventured east, carrying with them not just the mark of their transgression, but also the seeds of a spiritual revolution. In the fertile lands of their exile, they built cities, cultivated the arts, and forged new technologies. This drive to create and innovate, however, extended beyond the material realm. Cain's lineage, it appears, began to question the unseen, the intangible nature of the divine. They sought a more tangible connection to the spiritual world, a way to grasp and perhaps even control the forces that governed their lives. This shift in perspective, from passive acceptance to active engagement, marked a turning point in the spiritual journey of humankind. This desire for a more tangible divinity led to a radical departure from the monotheistic worship of their ancestors. No longer content with an unseen God, Cain's descendants sought to bring the divine down to earth, to give it form and shape. This marked the birth of idolatry, a practice that would irrevocably alter the course of human spirituality. From the heart of their burgeoning civilization, a new pantheon of gods began to emerge. These were not the ethereal, all-encompassing deities of their forefathers, but rather gods that reflected the complexities and contradictions of human experience. The single, all-encompassing God of their ancestors began to fragment in the minds of Cain's descendants. No longer was there just one divine force, but many, each representing a specific aspect of life, nature, or human endeavor. The sun, in its life-giving warmth, became a god. The moon, with its ethereal glow and influence on the tides, was another. Each element, each force of nature, even abstract concepts like love, war, and death, were personified, given form, and attributed divine power. This fragmentation of the divine mirrored the growing complexity of human society. As cities grew, as social structures became more intricate, so too did the pantheon of gods, each deity reflecting a specific facet of this evolving human experience. This shift from monotheism to polytheism wasn't merely a change in religious doctrine, it was a fundamental shift in how early humans perceived their place in the cosmos. No longer were they simply creations of a single, all-powerful God, but rather participants in a world animated by a multitude of divine forces, each vying for attention, each demanding respect and propitiation. The gods of this emerging polytheistic worldview were not distant, unknowable entities. They were reflections of humanity itself, embodying both the virtues and vices that characterized the human condition. They were gods of love and beauty, gods of war and destruction, gods of fertility and abundance, and gods of the underworld and the afterlife. These deities, often depicted in art and sculpture with human-like qualities, were more relatable, more understandable to the human mind. They experienced joy and sorrow, anger and love, mirroring the full spectrum of human emotions. Their stories, passed down through generations in myths and legends, provided explanations for natural phenomena, moral guidance, and insights into the mysteries of life and death. This humanization of the divine had a profound impact on the spiritual landscape. No longer was the spiritual realm seen as separate from the material world. Instead, the two were inextricably intertwined, with the gods playing an active role in the affairs of mortals, intervening in their lives for good or ill. With this new understanding of the divine came the need for new forms of worship. The simple, heartfelt prayers offered to a single God were no longer sufficient in a world populated by a multitude of deities, each with their own domain and desires. To appease these gods, to secure their favor and ward off their wrath, elaborate rituals and sacrifices were developed. Altars, once simple mounds of earth, became elaborate structures adorned with precious metals and intricate carvings. Temples, dedicated to specific deities, rose in the heart of cities, serving as both places of worship and centers of political and social life. The priesthood, once a loosely defined role, evolved into a powerful and influential class tasked with interpreting the will of the gods and mediating between the human and divine realms. These rituals, often involving animal sacrifices, offerings of food and drink, and elaborate prayers and chants, were not merely empty gestures. They were seen as essential to maintaining cosmic balance, ensuring the fertility of the land, the health of the people, and the continued favor of the gods. The rise of ritual marked a significant shift in the relationship between humanity and the divine, from one of humble supplication to one of active negotiation and exchange. But as Cain's descendants spread across the land, they carried with them this burgeoning polytheistic worldview. They sought out places of power, natural formations that resonated with a tangible sense of the divine. A grove of ancient trees, a towering mountain peak, a spring bubbling forth from the earth. These became sacred spaces imbued with the presence of the gods. These sites were not chosen randomly. They were carefully selected for their alignment with celestial bodies, their connection to underground water sources, or their resonance with certain energies perceived to emanate from the earth. These were not merely places of worship. They were believed to be portals, thin places in the veil between the human and the divine, where the gods could be more easily accessed and appeased. Over time, these natural temples were enhanced by human hands. Stone circles aligned with the solstices and equinoxes marked the passage of time and the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. Altars constructed of rough-hewn stone served as focal points for offerings and sacrifices, their surfaces stained with the blood of animals and the libations poured out to appease the gods. These sacred spaces, both natural and man-made, played a crucial role in shaping the religious landscape. They provided a tangible connection to the divine, a place where humans could step outside of their everyday lives and enter into a realm of ritual and communion with the gods. As the need to connect with the gods intensified, so too did the desire to give them tangible form. Out of wood, stone, and precious metals, Cain's descendants began to craft idols, representations of the deities they sought to worship. These were not mere decorations, they were believed to be imbued with the very essence of the gods they represented. The act of carving an idol was itself a sacred act, a ritual accompanied by prayers, offerings, and invocations to call the spirit of the god into its sculpted form. The materials chosen, the tools used, even the direction the artisan faced while carving, all held spiritual significance, ensuring that the finished idol was a worthy vessel for the divine presence. These idols varied widely in size and appearance, reflecting the diverse nature of the pantheon they represented. Some were small, handheld figures, kept in homes as protectors and sources of good fortune. Others were colossal statues, towering over temples and cities, their imposing presence a constant reminder of the power of the gods. The idol's gaze, fixed and unwavering, seemed to follow the worshipper, observing their every action, judging their every thought. This tangible representation of the divine, both awe-inspiring and fearsome, fostered a sense of intimacy and immediacy in worship. Section 3, Priests and Kings, mediating the divine will. As the polytheistic worldview took root, the role of religious specialists emerged. Priests, often drawn from the elite classes, dedicated their lives to understanding the complex web of deities, their rituals, and their desires. They became interpreters of omens, skilled in reading the signs and symbols through which the gods were believed to communicate their will. These priests held immense power within their societies. They advised kings and rulers, their pronouncements carrying the weight of divine authority. They presided over the most important rituals, their knowledge and expertise essential to ensuring the favor of the gods. The temples, once simple structures, evolved into grand complexes, centers of learning and repositories of sacred knowledge, presided over by a hierarchy of priests. The relationship between priests and kings was often complex and fraught with tension. Kings, eager to solidify their power, sought to align themselves with the divine, claiming divine right to rule, or even declaring themselves to be gods incarnate. Priests, while serving as advisors and intermediaries, also acted as a check on royal power, reminding rulers that their authority ultimately stemmed from the gods. This interplay between religious and secular power, between priests and kings, shaped the political and social landscape of these early societies. It was a delicate balance, one that could easily tip towards tyranny or chaos if the will of the gods was perceived to be ignored or defied. Section 1. Altars of Sacrifice. The price of divine favor. The construction of altars marked a pivotal shift in the relationship between humanity and the divine. No longer content with simple prayers and offerings, Cain's descendants sought more direct, tangible ways to appease their gods and secure their favor. The altar, a raised platform upon which sacrifices were made, became the focal point of this transactional approach to worship. These altars, often built of rough-hewn stone, were more than mere structures. They were believed to be sacred thresholds, points of contact between the earthly realm and the realm of the gods. The sacrifices made upon them, whether animals, crops, or even in some cases human lives, were not seen as barbaric acts, but as necessary offerings to appease the gods, to ensure their continued benevolence, or to atone for human transgressions. The shedding of blood, in particular, held profound significance. Life itself was considered sacred, a gift from the gods. To offer it back willingly and with the proper rituals was seen as the ultimate act of devotion, a way to appease the gods and maintain the delicate balance of the cosmos. The smoke rising from the altar, carrying the scent of burnt offerings to the heavens, was believed to carry with it the prayers and petitions of the worshippers, a tangible link between the human and the divine. The construction of altars and the practice of sacrifice, while seemingly primitive, reflect the deep yearning within the human heart to connect with something greater than itself, to seek favor and forgiveness from the powers that be. Section 2. The ritual and the real, intertwining the sacred and the mundane. As polytheism spread, rituals evolved from simple acts of devotion into elaborate ceremonies, meticulously choreographed and laden with symbolic meaning. These rituals, often performed by priests trained in the intricate arts of propitiation and divination, permeated every aspect of life, from the planting of crops to the crowning of kings. The rhythm of the seasons, the cycles of birth and death, the ebb and flow of fortune, all were seen as reflections of the divine order, to be celebrated and influenced through the proper rituals. Dances mimicking the movements of celestial bodies, chants invoking the names and attributes of the gods, offerings of food and drink placed upon carefully arranged altars. These were not merely symbolic acts, but believed to be vital to maintaining harmony between the human and the divine. Rituals provided a sense of order and predictability in a world often perceived as chaotic and unpredictable. They offered a framework for understanding the mysteries of life and death, a way to cope with the anxieties and uncertainties of existence. The performance of these rituals, passed down through generations, fostered a sense of community, a shared identity rooted in the worship of the same gods and the observance of the same sacred traditions. The line between the sacred and the mundane blurred as every aspect of life became infused with spiritual significance. Section 3. The weight of belief, navigating a world of many gods. While polytheism offered a more accessible, more relatable pantheon of gods, it also presented new challenges and complexities. With so many deities, each with their own domain and desires, navigating the spiritual landscape became a daunting task. Which gods should one propitiate? What sacrifices would ensure their favor? How could one avoid offending a jealous deity or incurring their wrath? The fear of divine retribution, whether in the form of illness, misfortune, or natural disaster, weighed heavily on the minds of the people. Omens were sought in the flights of birds, the entrails of animals, and the patterns of the stars, their interpretations entrusted to priests and oracles, believed to possess special insight into the divine will. This constant need to appease and placate the gods fostered a culture of anxiety and uncertainty. Life became a delicate balancing act, a constant negotiation with the unseen forces believed to hold sway over human destiny. Yet, amidst this spiritual complexity, there was also a sense of wonder and possibility. The gods, though powerful, were not seen as remote or unknowable. They were active participants in the affairs of mortals, capable of both great benevolence and terrible wrath. This belief, while daunting, also offered a glimmer of hope. If the gods could be angered, they could also be appeased. If they could punish, they could also reward. The weight of belief, though heavy at times, also carried with it the promise of divine intervention, of miracles and blessings bestowed upon those who lived in harmony with the divine order. Section 1. The Moral Compass. Seeking guidance in a pantheon of gods. The proliferation of gods, each embodying different virtues and vices, presented a unique challenge: how to discern right from wrong in a world where the divine itself seemed morally ambiguous. With no single source of absolute truth, moral guidance became a matter of interpretation, a complex tapestry woven from the myths, legends, and pronouncements of priests and oracles. The stories of the gods, passed down through generations, offered a glimpse into the consequences of different actions. The virtuous deeds of benevolent deities were extolled as examples to emulate, while the transgressions of more capricious gods served as cautionary tales. These narratives, however, were rarely straightforward. Gods, like humans, were capable of both great and terrible acts, their motivations often shrouded in mystery or driven by passions not easily understood by mortals. This ambiguity forced individuals to grapple with ethical dilemmas on a deeper level. Should one always strive to appease the gods, even if it meant compromising one's own moral compass? Was there a universal standard of right and wrong, or did it vary from deity to deity, from culture to culture? These questions, far from undermining religious belief, fueled a vibrant theological discourse. The very act of seeking moral guidance within this complex pantheon encouraged introspection and debate, pushing individuals to define their own ethical boundaries and to grapple with the consequences of their actions. Section 2. Seeds of Discord. When gods collide. The worship of many gods, while fostering a sense of connection to the natural world and the forces that governed it, also sowed the seeds of discord. With each city, each tribe, each ruler often aligning themselves with a particular deity or pantheon, religious beliefs became increasingly intertwined with political power and territorial ambitions. As empires expanded, their gods went with them, their worship imposed upon conquered peoples, often leading to religious syncretism as foreign deities were assimilated into existing pantheons or reinterpreted to fit local beliefs. This fusion of cultures and beliefs, while enriching in many ways, also created tensions and rivalries. The perceived favor of one god over another, often attributed to military victories or natural disasters, could tip the balance of power, leading to religious persecution, forced conversions, or even holy wars waged in the name of competing deities. The very nature of polytheism, with its emphasis on the power of specific gods, made it susceptible to such conflicts. When the divine was seen as fragmented, as a collection of competing forces rather than a unified whole, it was perhaps inevitable that those divisions would be mirrored in the human realm, fueling rivalries and conflicts that transcended the material world. Section 3. The heart's true worship beyond ritual and sacrifice. As centuries passed, a subtle but profound shift began to occur within the hearts of some worshippers. The elaborate rituals, the sacrifices offered upon blood-soaked altars, these outward expressions of piety, while still important, began to feel insufficient. A yearning emerged for a deeper, more personal connection to the divine, a spirituality that transcended the transactional nature of traditional worship. This nascent spiritual awakening manifested in different ways. Mystics and prophets emerged, claiming direct communion with the gods, their ecstatic visions and pronouncements challenging the authority of traditional priesthoods. Philosophers and theologians began to question the nature of the divine, seeking a unifying principle behind the seemingly disparate and often contradictory nature of the pantheon. Some individuals, disillusioned by the pomp and ceremony of organized religion, retreated from the confines of temples and altars, seeking solace in solitary contemplation and communion with nature, finding traces of the divine in the quiet whisper of the wind, the gentle flow of a river, or the awe-inspiring vastness of the starry sky. This quest for a more authentic, more heartfelt form of worship did not negate the polytheistic worldview, but rather sought to deepen and enrich it. It was a recognition that true piety lay not merely in the outward observance of rituals, but in the inner transformation of the heart, in cultivating virtues such as compassion, humility, and justice, qualities that transcended the whims and desires of any single deity. Section 1. Empires of the Sun, the divine mandate of pharaohs. Nowhere was the influence of polytheism on civilization more evident than in ancient Egypt. The fertile banks of the Nile, nurtured by the annual floods, gave rise to a civilization that viewed its rulers as divine intermediaries, their power inseparable from the cosmic order dictated by the gods. Pharaohs, considered living embodiments of Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship, ruled with absolute authority, their every decree considered the will of the divine. The Egyptian pantheon, a complex tapestry of deities representing natural forces, human emotions, and abstract concepts, played an integral role in every aspect of Egyptian life. From the sun god Ra, who sailed across the heavens each day in his solar bark, to Osiris, god of the underworld and judge of the dead, these deities shaped the Egyptians' understanding of the world and their place within it. Monumental temples adorned with hieroglyphics and colossal statues served as both palaces of the gods and centers of political and religious power. Priests, meticulously trained in the rituals and mysteries of their chosen deities, wielded considerable influence, their pronouncements shaping the lives of everyone from humble farmers to the pharaoh himself. The divine mandate of the pharaohs, their connection to the gods, legitimized their rule and ensured the stability of Egyptian society for millennia. Section 2. Mesopotamia's cosmic order, ziggurats reaching for the heavens. In the fertile crescent of Mesopotamia, where writing was born and cities first flourished, a different expression of polytheism took root. The Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians who inhabited this region envisioned a cosmos ruled by a council of gods, each responsible for different aspects of creation and human affairs. To honor these deities and ensure their continued favor, they constructed ziggurats, towering stepped pyramids that served as both temples and symbols of the connection between heaven and earth. These monumental structures, their summits reaching towards the heavens, dominated the urban landscape, a constant reminder of the gods' presence and power. The Mesopotamian pantheon, much like its Egyptian counterpart, was a reflection of the world these civilizations inhabited. From Anu, the sky god, to Enki, god of wisdom and water, to Ishtar, goddess of love and war, these deities embodied the forces that shaped the Mesopotamians' daily lives. Their myths and legends, often inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script, explored themes of creation, conflict, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos, reflecting the challenges and triumphs of life in this dynamic and often unpredictable region. The Mesopotamians' belief in a cosmic order, maintained through the worship of the gods and the performance of elaborate rituals, provided a sense of stability and purpose in a world often beset by war, famine, and natural disasters. Section 3. The Greek Pantheon, Human Passions, Divine Drama. From the rugged mountains and sun-drenched islands of Greece emerged a pantheon of gods and goddesses as flawed and passionate as the humans who worshipped them. The Greeks, unlike their Egyptian and Mesopotamian counterparts, did not view their deities as remote, unknowable entities, but rather as beings of immense power and beauty, driven by the same desires, jealousies, and ambitions that fueled human drama. From the majestic heights of Mount Olympus, Zeus, king of the gods, ruled over a realm of immortals who reflected the full spectrum of human experience. Hera, his jealous wife, Athena, goddess of wisdom and warfare, Apollo, god of music and light, Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty. These deities, immortal yet all too human in their passions and flaws, captivated the Greek imagination. The Greeks honored their gods through grand temples, athletic competitions like the Olympic Games, and epic poems that celebrated their deeds and explored the complexities of fate, free will, and the human condition. The Greek pantheon, with its emphasis on individual deities and their distinct personalities, fostered a spirit of inquiry and debate as philosophers and playwrights grappled with questions of morality, justice, and the nature of the divine. This intellectual ferment, fueled by the Greeks' fascination with their gods, laid the groundwork for the development of Western philosophy, literature, and art. Section 1. The Enduring Echo. From the sun-baked plains of Mesopotamia to the shadow of Egypt's pyramids, the echoes of early polytheism resonate through history. While the specific deities and rituals may have faded, the fundamental impulse that gave rise to this belief system, the desire to understand and connect with the forces shaping our lives, remains a constant in the human story. The ancient Egyptians, gazing upon the Nile's life-giving waters, saw the hand of a god. The Mesopotamians, seeking order amidst the unpredictability of nature, envisioned a cosmic hierarchy reflected in their pantheon of deities. The Greeks, with their love of drama and their fascination with the human condition, imbued their gods with passions and flaws that mirrored their own. These ancient cultures, though separated by time and geography, shared a common thread, a belief that the divine in its myriad forms was intimately intertwined with the human experience. This worldview, far from being a relic of a bygone era, continues to shape our understanding of the world in subtle yet profound ways. The stories we tell, the art we create, the very language we use, all bear the imprint of this ancient belief system. Even in our secular age, we speak of the fickle finger of fate, of the gods smiling upon us, of forces beyond our control shaping our destiny. These echoes of polytheism woven into the fabric of our culture remind us of the enduring power of belief, of the human need to find meaning and purpose in a world often perceived as chaotic and unpredictable. Section 2. A Legacy of Seeking. The journey from the monotheism of our earliest ancestors to the complex polytheistic systems of the ancient world was not a linear progression, but rather a testament to the restless, inquiring nature of the human spirit. Cain's descendants, driven by their desire to understand and control the forces shaping their lives, embarked on a spiritual quest that led them to populate the heavens with a multitude of gods and goddesses. This quest, however, was not without its challenges. The proliferation of deities, each with their own demands and desires, created a moral landscape fraught with ambiguity and the potential for conflict. The very act of seeking to appease one god could incur the wrath of another, leading to a cycle of anxiety and propitiation. Yet this spiritual complexity also fostered a depth of introspection and a richness of theological debate that continues to resonate today. The legacy of polytheism is not one of simple answers or unwavering dogma, but rather a legacy of seeking, of questioning, of grappling with the mysteries of existence. It reminds us that the human relationship with the divine is not static, but rather an ongoing dialogue, a journey of discovery that continues to unfold across cultures and throughout history. As we navigate the complexities of our modern world, we would do well to remember the lessons of our polytheistic past. The impulse to seek meaning, to connect with something greater than ourselves, is deeply ingrained in the human psyche. Whether we find solace in traditional religion and spiritual practices or in the awe-inspiring beauty of the natural world, the quest for understanding and connection remains a fundamental aspect of what it means to be human. It is a quest that transcends any single belief system, a journey that continues to shape who we are and who we are yet to become.